Good morning. Wow. Ooh, that's a little tilted, isn't it? That's better. Good morning, artists. Happy Thursday. It's another bright, sunny day out. I hope you guys get a chance to pop outside if you haven't been out already. It was a lot warmer this morning. Didn't need nearly as many layers going out to walk the dogs as normal. And we're just going to get right back into our paper crane challenge. Remember, you have two cranes, that you need to turn in by tomorrow. And this will be the last time I'll say this week at least. Please do not turn in any pictures that are not of your own cranes. If you hunt around the internet, if you hunt around Instagram and try to find and save pictures of cranes that are not yours and send them to me, they will get found out. It's pretty obvious when it's student taken picture versus somebody who's professionally taken it on the internet. So please just turn in your own stuff. Better that you not turn anything in or need to have a few more days than to try and cheat and steal someone else's artwork. Okay? That's the last time I'll remind you of it, this week at least. Hopefully we won't have too many turned in this time around. Okay? So we're going to turn you around here and get you into the cranes. Flip-a-doo. Ta-ta-tum. So, yesterday we managed to finish an amazing 50, which is pretty nice. We're going to try and do better today. So I realized I had done like a nice middle yellow color, but I had not gone and gotten this kind of nice golden yellow. So we're going to bring that out, get all set up here, and we're just going to go right in. Got the holiday weekend coming up. I know for many of you, this will be the end of Ramadan. Hope that has gone very well for you guys who have been celebrating and fasting. Sounds like every place is getting ready to start opening up more. I know I'm looking forward to being outside with the warmer weather, but still staying safe. I think it's going to be quite a while before we're feeling safe enough to go sit in restaurants and whatnot yet. Carryout hasn't been so bad. I think the only thing that I would really be missing going out for, since pretty much every place is doing carryout, and they're probably going to continue to do that, I think the only thing I'll really be missing is possibly going into the movies. But nothing's out, so not really a worry about that. Although I did hear, they're saying it on the news this morning, that they're going to be releasing, re-releasing rather, the Justice League movie that came out a couple years ago. But it's going to be the director's cut, Zack Snyder's cut. Which, if you guys aren't up on your movie, superhero movie trivia, Zack Snyder did the Man of Steel, the Superman movie. And then he also did Batman v Superman, and then he was on the Justice League. But partway through the project, they had him, to mark that, they had him take a step back, and they brought in Joss Whedon to kind of wrap things up on the movie. And Joss Whedon is the one who's been doing all the Avengers stuff, the Avengers movies. And it was kind of painfully obvious that they had brought him in for it. Snyder is really known for doing these kind of darker, he really kind of embraced the whole Dark Knight idea from Nolan of doing this, very gritty type of movie. And a lot of people weren't happy with the way that he made Superman, because Superman is supposed to be, he's the symbol of hope and peace. And his movie was just carnage everywhere. And especially him killing the villain at the end is something very outside of what Superman would normally do. So there's parts when you're watching the Justice League that it's definitely his. It feels very dark. But Joss Whedon, who's been doing Avengers, has been doing more bouncy. I mean, lighthearted movies. I'm pretty sure he did Guardians of the Galaxy as well. So he's kind of turned Marvel into this everybody quips, one-liner, sarcasm kind of sense of humor, which, is fine in doses. But when he took over doing Justice League, he did a bunch of reshoots and added things and changed some things, and it's really obvious which parts belong to him. Because you'll be in the middle of this, dark and gritty, super serious action scene, and then, something weird will happen. I don't want to, I'm not going to, the movie's a couple years old now, so, but I guess kind of spoiler alert. It's not really a big spoiler, but it's just something that kind of happens. There's a part in the movie where they're fighting the main bad guy, and the Flash runs off for a little bit because he's trying to save people in the nearby neighborhood. It kind of determined that he's not as much a help fighting this super strong baddie as, stronger characters like Wonder Woman and Superman and Aquaman. So he runs off and is trying to get people out of buildings and get them out of the area so that, they don't have super loss of life while they're fighting this big monster. And Superman, who's probably the best equipped to actually fight this guy, is like, okay, you guys handle him for a second. And he flies off to also save people. Which if he would just beat the guy, then it would be over. Instead, he's got to fly off, essentially rescue an entire building full of people, and kind of brag about it to the Flash, who is not super strong. He's just super fast. Who's been trying to save people, 2 or 3 at a time, whatever he can, just carry. And Superman kind of flies by with a little bit of a "haha, I win" sarcastic quip. And Flash is like, "Oh man." And it's like this really lighthearted, kind of funny, jokey moment. And then it's like, okay, back to the gritty battle, and our superheroes might die. It's like, wait, but they were just joking with each other, and now they're about to die. Like, you gotta find a better balance. Like, the fact that they got these two guys that are totally opposite in terms of their ideas of the superhero movie, they threw them together, and it just, it was a mess. Justice League was a mess. It's so much mess that I don't even own it. There are very few of the superhero movies that I don't have bought. That's not a good sentence. That I have not bought. I think I own almost every Marvel movie of the new series, with only a few exceptions. Those exceptions being Thor Ragnarok. I'll talk about that in a second. That's a whole nother thing. And the 2 new Spider-Man movies, Homecoming and Far From Home. I do not own either of those. Not that I didn't like them, but that's also a whole other thing. I will talk about those too. Let me finish my thought with the Justice League, though. We got an hour, right? We've got plenty of time for me to ramble on about superheroes today. It's in my mind. So in any case, Zack Snyder is going to be releasing his version of the Justice League, the director's cut, and has kind of told the press that the movie could end up being close to 4 hours long. I'm like, are you out of your mind? Like, is this going to be his complete re-edit? I mean, what is that going to do to the movie? Are there major plot points that are going to get changed? Are there major character things that are going to get changed? Is this an attempt at trying to reinvigorate the DC movie universe to compete with Avengers? I mean, I know that after Justice League originally fell flat, they had planned a whole ton of movies with, you know, Cyborg and the Flash and all of them. They had already started work on Wonder Woman 2, because the first Wonder Woman did so well. It was amazing. And they had just started on Aquaman, so they were going to finish those two, but then they, after Justice League kind of died, they canceled all the other ones that they were planning on making. And since then, I've kind of given up the idea of having a connected universe and have just been kind of willy-nilly throwing out movies, because they had the Suicide Squad, which was weird. It was all over the place. It was not a good movie. I mean, I know some people were really into it, but it looked pretty, and that was about it. And I know everybody was hating on the Joker in that movie, but I didn't mind him. I know everybody loved Heath Ledger's Joker, and that, you know, it's become like legendary, but I mean, I grew up with Jack Nicholson as the Joker from the Batman movie. And then when the animated series came out, Mark Hamill doing the voice of the Joker, and that has still been one of my favorites. I mean, between the two of them, I think there's a great kind of balance of having the seriousness and the murderous nature of the Joker from the movie with the character from the animated series. It kind of made for I guess a good headcanon of the Joker. And Heath Ledger's was fine. I didn't mind it. It was definitely very different from the Joker that I was used to. So that was a little bit weird, but in any case, having Jared Leto doing an even further, like, just a totally different kind of Joker that, you know. And of course, everybody talked about the movie Joker, which I did not see that. I don't necessarily know that I'm interested in it. I might read up a little more. I've seen a few things talking about it, and how it's like some big social commentary, and I don't know, it's a little too real for me right now. Anyway, Suicide Squad was way out there. I did see the Harley Quinn movie, which was also kind of trash. And I know that there's a lot going on with Harley's character. She was introduced in the animated series and was so popular in that they ended up bringing her into the comic universe. And she went through this whole big character arc in the comic universe of being Joker's girlfriend, to realizing how abused she was, to breaking up and getting out on her own, and which I think is a tough thing too, because she still dresses like a clown, and that's always been the Joker's thing. So it's hard to feel that she's completely separated from him when she's still using that persona that she has from being with him. I don't know. Anyway, that movie was also bizarre and not great. But they're kind of going all over the place with DC, so maybe they're trying to bring out this new cut to try and solidify the universe again. Maybe they're looking at it like if they can get people to feel better about Justice League, will people be more likely then to go and support the other movies? Can they go back and bring it all about? I mean, I think DC really rushed it by jumping right into a Justice League movie without really introducing the other characters. And I know that they didn't want it to take as long. I mean, Marvel built theirs up over a couple of years, because they had the Iron Man movies happened. 1 and 2 happened before the first Avengers. Captain America and Thor each had their own movies. The Hulk movie had come out even before then. It was not very well liked, but at least there was the sense that he was there, and he did have his movie that kind of set him up a little bit. But if they did that with Justice League, that would have been a lot of time trying to do that kind of a build-up as well. So I'm not shocked that they went right into Justice League, but I think that didn't help anything, because you're throwing together these characters that you're supposed to care about. Like, I liked the Aquaman movie, and I thought that had done well, and I kind of wish that had taken place before Justice League had happened. Because that's really, I mean, in Justice League, again, not really spoilers, it's the very beginning of the movie, Bruce Wayne, Batman, seeks out Aquaman to join the team, because he has heard rumors that he is super strong and a fish person and has ties to an underwater city that nobody else in the world seems to know about. But he does. Unclear. But if they had done the Aquaman movie, which mostly takes place with all the politics of being under the sea, it would have made much more sense. And actually, I'm thinking about it. Is that movie, maybe that movie was supposed to take place first? Did Aquaman have his trident in Justice League? I mean, that's his big thing. Maybe it was. Maybe it was a flashback. I don't remember. I'll have to look that up now. But that's how it's so confusing is... I mean, they had Wonder Woman show up in Batman vs. Superman. And then they did an origin movie. Be like, hey, did you like Wonder Woman in here? Well, here's her origin. Well, she didn't do hardly anything in Justice League. She showed up and looked pretty. It just feels like DC wants to compete, but they don't really know how. It's like they're trying to compete, but they're also trying to do it differently. And on one hand, they want to make it enjoyable and quippy the way that the Marvel movies have become, but they're also trying to keep that dark, gritty feeling that the Dark Knight series that Nolan did kind of had. They should just hand everything over to the guys that made Into the Spider-Verse, because that movie was amazing and well done, with good characters and great music. And most people will argue is probably the best of the Spider-Man movies. Let's talk about Spider-Man. As I mentioned, I don't have any of the newer movies of his. The Homecoming and Coming Home. So during the late 80s, early 90s, I think it's mostly early 90s, is when the big superhero animated era jumped in. Batman the Animated Series, the X-Men cartoon, which is fantastic still. The theme music will get stuck in my head every now and then. And there was a Spider-Man animated series as well, which was awesome. That was great. And they brought out the first Spider-Man trilogy with Tobey Maguire, who was fine. He was fine as Peter. Probably felt a little bit on the older side. And those movies were kind of fun and campy and went off the rails a little bit, but, it's fine. The third one's a bit of a hot mess, but, it's fine. And then a couple years ago, they announced they were doing The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. And I love the idea. Andrew Garfield actually looks younger. He played a teenager really well. It was kind of fun to do a Spider-Man that was not with Mary Jane, because I ended up not liking Mary Jane in the first trilogy. She was too whiny for me. And she ditched her fiancé at the altar to go with Spider-Man, and then was mad at Spider-Man for not giving her all his attention. Anyway, side rant. I liked The Amazing Spider-Man. And I know a lot of people didn't like the second one. And it was rough. But I think people were especially against it. It wasn't any weirder or campier than the trilogy Spider-Man, the first three. I mean, I'd probably argue it's still better than the third Spider-Man. I know that's unpopular opinion, but there it is. But I still thought that Andrew Garfield was a great actor in them. High stakes in that one. I really like, what's his name? Dane DeHaan, who played Harry. I really liked the two of them together. They had great scenes together, and Dane DeHaan does a really great job with these kind of almost tortured characters. He was in another great superhero movie. It's an original movie, not related to DC or Marvel or anything, called Chronicle, where he plays a teenager with three of his friends that come upon kind of I think it's like a meteorite or a crashed alien ship. I don't think it's ever made entirely clear, because it's kind of a found footage movie. But they gain superpowers. They gain like, I think it's pretty much, you can just say it's telekinesis. They can make objects flow and move, including themselves. And he goes through this great arc of, you know, what happens with these characters that, I mean, they're high schoolers that gain superpowers, and it's a very realistic kind of look on what could really happen. And, you know, if your everyday person suddenly gained superpowers, what would they become? Are they, you know, you kind of ask the question throughout, you know, are they going to become heroes? Are they going to become villains? What's going to lead to that? And seeing him in the Amazing Spider-Man, it was a similar kind of feeling, that question of, you know, he's playing this character that's in a really bad kind of home life situation, you know, being an Osborn. So there, you know, even though there were some ridiculous things in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, I still really liked them. I liked having the younger Peter. And then when they announced that they were going to be bringing a Spider-Man into Marvel, I was actually kind of hoping that they were going to switch it up and do Miles Morales instead of Peter Parker. Maybe part of that was I was a little salty over they'd already said they were getting rid of Andrew Garfield because Amazing Spider-Man 2 had done so badly. Which I don't think was his fault at all. And I wasn't happy that they were talking about switching him, and it was pretty quick between one and the other. I don't remember exactly how long apart the movies were, but I mean, I want to say it was like within 5 years or so. Probably not even that long. It just felt like almost immediately. It was like, we're bringing in Spider-Man, and it's going to be an all-new Spider-Man. We're going to hire an even younger actor so he can feel even more like a teenager. But then they said, no, it's going to be Peter again. And they're not going to do an origin story because everybody knows his origin story. But, yes, but this is a completely new character. They brought him in for Civil War before his own movie could come out, which I think that was the problem that Justice League did, was bringing in new characters and not giving us a really good introduction. I think the only exception was Black Panther. Black Panther, I think, was handled a little bit better because nobody knew about him. He kind of became the superhero after what happened to his dad. He'd been practicing. And I don't mean like training. I mean like he was doing some superhero things, but nothing too crazy. Nothing that would be in the public eye at all. Unlike Spider-Man, who's Tony figured out watching him catch criminals on, you know, security cameras. And people had already been talking about him. And we're just going to skip over how Tony found him and just, oh, he's a tech genius and he just found him. I didn't mind Homecoming. It's hard, it's getting harder, especially in Marvel. Because whenever you have these kind of movies, you want to always up the stakes in some way. So Marvel, we go from, if you're just kind of looking at the Avengers, we go from alien invasion, which you get the feeling that eventually, like Earth defenses would have been able to do something. If the Avengers hadn't been there, maybe New York City would have gotten taken over, but I mean, all it ended up taking was one missile to get rid of them. In the right spot, of course, but it just kind of makes you feel that, okay, military would have been able to do something about this. The world would come together and eventually could have fought them off in some way. Second Avengers with Ultron went big. That was an actual threat to human life. He was going to kind of essentially drop a meteor that would probably kill off all of humanity. Not something that our armies would be able to fight off. It was a human-ending event. And then we get Infinity War, and that is not just a global event, that is a universe event. But as those movies started getting bigger, it became less believable for other giant events to really have any kind of impact. I think that's why things like Winter Soldier and Civil War, those were very internal, more character-driven threats. This was a threat to the Avengers from the inside, that their corporation was infiltrated by spies, or somebody is sowing dissent amongst the Avengers and causing them to fight amongst each other. That's, instead of like a possible world-ending event, this is internal struggles. Iron Man 3 had a lot of internal struggle over, can Tony be a superhero without Iron Man, and eventually coming to the ridiculous thing of he's gonna blow up all his suits and no longer be Iron Man, which I can't believe that the studio kind of let him get away with that, since they were already planning another Avengers movie, but whatevers. But it was hard to believe that the president could get kidnapped by an extreme group that was trying to create superpowered people, and they did not bring in Captain America to save the US president, and they did not call for Bruce Banner to come in and see if he could help with these superpowered people, and they did not call in Black Widow or Hawkeye. Like, they had to create this weird scenario of Tony has decided to be entirely selfish and solve the whole thing on his own without the use of his suit or anything. But that he spends part of the movie, people assume he's dead. So I know people complain that the problem with that movie was the surprise with the villain, who was not actually a villain. He was a puppet. But I think the biggest problem was the unrealistic feel of the threat in the situation. So then when you bring that back to the new Spider-Man movies, Homecoming was fine. It was on a small scale. I again kind of wish that that could have been something that happened before Civil War, before he got introduced. Like, if that movie was about him getting to, doing his thing, and then to getting to, you could still have, still have Iron Man in it, getting discovered by Tony, who tries to put him off the idea of being a superhero, which he was doing anyway. He was, kind of semi-discouraging him from doing stuff after he'd already included him in Civil War, which makes no sense. Hey kid, come help me fight these superheroes. Now stop being a superhero because you're no good at it. What? It didn't make sense. It would have made more sense if Homecoming came first, and that was about Tony finding him and hoping to get him to join his side, with the whole Sokovia Accords. Like, maybe that was starting to come down the pipeline. So he's like, we got to get other people involved in this. So it felt weird. It felt like a weird placement of the movie when the movie happened. And then the one that came out last summer, Coming Home. That went back to trying to create the feeling of a world threat. And they don't call in any of the other Avengers. Like, this is post Endgame. And of course the monsters, the villains, the things that Spider-Man has to fight. Spoilers, I guess, for this movie that came out a year ago. The bad guy is making illusions of monsters that could threaten to destroy the world. He tells S.H.I.E.L.D. these monsters could threaten to destroy Earth because they destroyed my home planet in a different dimension. And by this point, Iron Man is dead. Captain America is retired. He went back in time and is no longer participating. Black Widow is dead. Vision is dead. Like, okay, but Wanda is still there. And, maybe Captain Marvel has gone off planet, but we've seen her be able to go across the galaxy going through gates and such. So the idea that she couldn't get there is ridiculous. And Hawkeye is still around. Falcon is still around. Bucky is still around. Doctor Strange. How do you have a character who shows up and, is a magician type, and you don't call in Doctor Strange? That's just weird. It is too weird that you would have all of S.H.I.E.L.D., or even just a small group of S.H.I.E.L.D., be told this is a possible world-ending situation, and we're only going to call Spider-Man. And they kind of make, not quite a joke of it, but, Spider-Man does ask, like, what about this person? What about Thor? Oh, he's on Asgard. Okay. Or he's off with the Guardians. Okay, well, what about Bruce? Oh, no, he's taking Tai Chi somewhere. Who knows? He is also not present. Doctor Strange doesn't deal with this kind of thing. Captain Marvel is off in the universe somewhere. Who knows? You're the only one. That's baloney. That is so much baloney. So even with all of the parts about that movie that were kind of interesting and fun, it was totally overshadowed by this ridiculous plot idea of this could destroy the world, but you're the only one we can call. And of course, I guess it's a spoiler, but it's kind of not really. The movie post credits thing was the bad guy outs Peter. He shows the world who Spider-Man is, and they act like, oh gosh, everybody knows his secret identity now. It's like, yes, like every single other member of the Avengers. Like, that was the whole thing in the Winter Soldier movie was Natasha Black Widow outed them all. She put it all out there. Like, no more secrets from S.H.I.E.L.D. I mean, everybody already knew Tony was Iron Man. Everybody knew Captain America was Steve Rogers. They knew about Black Widow then. They knew about Bruce. I mean, he goes around as the Hulk now pretty much all the time. Which was a very weird decision to do that off camera, to have Bruce figure out how to control the Hulk without anyone around. Sure, why not? It's not a secret. I mean, the reason why they've done it in the past is so that they could feel like the villains were not going to then threaten, the people that they care about. But that has not really been a thing in Marvel for a little while. I mean, they've done a couple damsel in distress moments, but not that many. I think they did that in Thor the Dark World, and in Iron Man 3, Pepper gets kidnapped. But both those ladies eventually come out of it and are fine. I mean, Pepper's got her own Iron Man suit that she seems to be able to control really well, according to when you look at Endgame. And supposedly, Natalie Portman, what was her character's name? I forget. It's been a while. Apparently she's going to become Jane Foster. She's going to become the next wielder of Thor's hammer. Which, is that even a thing? Can that even be a thing? His hammer was destroyed in this universe. Thor Ragnarok. I know a lot of people really loved that movie because it was very bright and very silly, and it lends very well to putting Thor to being more like Guardians of the Galaxy. But I didn't like it. I didn't like that they completely changed up Thor's manner of speaking, that he no longer, that he's talks just like everybody else, that he's snarky and, you know, quippy one-liners, that he's sarcastic. It's like he didn't really understand sarcasm before. That was not part of his character. He's an Asgardian god. And I mean, I know that Chris Hemsworth wants to be more of a comedic actor, so that suited him better to be this quirky, snarky Thor, but it just made him a completely different character. You can't introduce the character of Hela, have her be this ridiculously destructive force on Asgard, murdering so many people, destroyed all the Valkyrie. But sure, let's hit her with a couple one-liners. Like, but I mean, I feel like some of these movies have kind of started to spoil us to feel like they're made for an older audience. Like, we've had some very serious moments that, you know, younger people may or may not understand. Not just anything for you guys, that, you know, you can still enjoy it, but for someone like me, who's very old now, maybe I'm expecting too much. Maybe I'm expecting it to be a movie meant for someone my age, but then they throw in these things that remind me that it's not. Don't get out of sequence now. No, you're ruining it, bird. I haven't been looking at the count, really. Got about 15 more minutes. I made 40 of this color, so we've got almost 40 now. So we're not doing too badly. So yes, in any case, that is why I do not have Thor the Dark, or not Thor Ragnarok, or the Spider-Man Homecoming, Coming Home movies. I mean, I even have Iron Man 3, and that is ridiculous. I wish I could be more excited for the Black Widow movie, but it feels kind of ridiculous because her character is dead. So why bring us a movie now after she's gone? It feels more like they're going to use this movie to set up for totally different things. Like, whatever characters, hero, villain, some people are suggesting that they're gonna create a Dark Avengers series now, because one of the characters that seems to be in the Black Widow movie is a member of the Dark Avengers. But it feels kind of cheap. New color. It feels kind of cheap that we've been waiting all this time for Marvel to get with the program of let's get the ladies in there. Let's have a couple of female-led movies. You know, Wonder Woman did great. It's like they could have had that. They could have had a Black Widow movie. They could have done it years ago, when it would have been more believable to do a flashback sequence with Scarlett Johansson. I mean, she's gorgeous, of course. But I'm not going to believe any flashback that shows her, you know, in her early 20s or something. And if it's just going to be a jumping off point to pull in new characters, it's not really going to be her movie. It's going to be the movie about how we meet these other characters. That these are the characters we're now going to want to care about, because they're going to be the ones that we're actually going to see moving forward. And I enjoyed Captain Marvel's movie. I think there was only one real thing about it that I was ready to, that I was going to complain about. And it was actually something I had mentioned even before we went in. I said to my sister when we were going in, I said, I hope that the one thing they don't do in this movie is have that moment near the end, not the like final climactic battle, but we're getting towards the climactic battle. I hope they don't suddenly do a super slow motion battle sequence and put it to like some kind of licensed song, like pop music or something. Not because I don't like pop music, but because it seems to be something that's been happening quite a bit, is we get to this moment and then it's like, let's throw in some kind of song that maybe has a little relation to something going on. And then they did it, and they threw in the I'm Just a Girl song to be like, yeah, girl power. But no. No thanks. And throwing her movie into the middle to have Infinity War and then show Nick Fury contacting Captain Marvel and then be like, okay, now let's do her origin story. Okay, we'll do it. But the problem was that they had already filmed Endgame by the time they made Captain Marvel's movie. So while they were making Endgame, the actress was saying how difficult it was because she didn't know who her character was. And the writers of Endgame didn't know what her character was or who she might have had any kind of relationship with. They might have known she was going to have her own movie with Fury, but that was it. They weren't going to have seen her character, see how the actress would be able to portray her. So she kind of couldn't act because she didn't have any story. All she had was her character is very powerful. And that's it. So that's probably why they had Marvel be gone most of the movie. She's off on other planets who don't have superheroes, which is ridiculous because there are other planets out there that have their own armies and I'm sure would have some level of their own heroes or species that are much stronger than humans. So for her to just leave and just kind of flutter off was silly. to have all of the Avengers showing up and fighting and then start to lose, and then Captain Marvel shows up, showing off how powerful she is, but she has zero character at this point, and we can't even be excited about her coming in to save the day because we don't know anything about her. Or she hasn't connected with any of these new characters. Their attitude towards her was more of a, well, it's about time that she showed up. Who is this person? But anyway, when you have a character like Captain Marvel who is so strong, who could solve most of the problems, you know, in a snap, you start to have these questions like, okay, and especially having them do these flashback, let's introduce her, you know, back in the, in the 90s. Why did Fury not call her for Ultron? I mean, that was a giant meteor is going to destroy the planet. She can get across the galaxy in 2 blinks. How did he not call her for that? Yeah, maybe he had faith in the Avengers, but they almost didn't make it. If they hadn't managed to change the minds of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, they would have been fighting against them. There would have been no way. It's too much at stake. And even Fury knowing about what was happening with the Infinity Stones, even knowing about everything that was going on, Thanos' people are appearing. They are actively collecting stones. The Avengers knew some of them that they had. How Fury did not contact her early on is silly. I mean, of course, he can't contact her, or else the movie wouldn't happen, because she would have shown up at the end of Infinity War and probably broke Thanos' neck in the end. No snap, the end. I mean, she's supposed to be more powerful than Thor, and Thor almost killed Thanos. Now, I admit that seeing Endgame in the theaters, I did have that, oh yay, as I'm sure most ladies did, when they had their very brief girl power scene. When tiny little Spider-Man hands over the gauntlet to Captain Marvel, and all the other ladies are like, we're gonna fight with her. You have that moment of, yay, it's all the ladies. And then 30 seconds later, it's over. And you don't actually get to see any of the ladies really fight. They just kind of like swoop in, punch a few side guys, and then Captain Marvel loses the gauntlet, which is stupid. There's a question. In Spider-Man Far From Home, it was all a fight to try and get Tony's technology. How did he not just give that to Pepper? I mean, she has her own. Has she decided that she's not going to fight to save the world? I mean, if it's a world-ending situation, why would she not be there? Why would she not have, like, a separate code? Like, even if Tony gives this absolute power to Peter, which is ridiculous to give that much to a teenager, as you immediately find out, because he almost kills one of his classmates with an assassin drone, which why Tony's got an assassin drone is beyond belief anyway. How would that being engaged not send an alert to Pepper? How would she not have saw that this teenager engaged a robot to possibly kill his classmate and gone, you know what? I don't think a little teenager should have that kind of ability. That's a little much. It's a little much. Guys, I have spent this entire stream ranting about superheroes. Should I say sorry? I don't know. I had them in my mind this morning, especially when I saw that whole thing about the Justice League. I was like, man, we've been without superheroes for a little bit. We'll be without them for a while. Oh, thanks, phone. We'll be without them for a little while. This is going to be the last one, and I'm going to count it up. I don't know if I beat out yesterday's number or if I tied it. It looks pretty close. I'll have to put a little subnote when I post this video up on YouTube to be like, folding paper cranes and tearing apart superhero movies. All right, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50 again? That's fine. I ain't even mad about it. Look at all these beautiful cranes. Let me just scoot these in a little bit. Ta-da! There they are. They're beautiful. All right, swinging you back around. Back to the front, please. Is it the front of the room? And get it all centered. There we go. Okay. So, happy Thursday again. Back again tomorrow. Project's due tomorrow, so make sure you get those pictures turned in. And we will finish up this weekly challenge of how many paper cranes we can do. It looks like we'll probably get around another 50 again. And then we'll maybe talk a little bit about what to get ready for next week. All right? In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, wash your hands, cover your face when you go out places. Just be careful. You know, we're not out of there yet. The threat is still out there, even though things are trying to open up. Just please be careful and take care of yourself and the people around you. Have a great day. Get outside and enjoy the new weather. See you tomorrow. Come on, stream. Bye.